Okay, welcome everyone to Defining Tanya. We are mamas on the home stretch. Shin, Seichel. We went through Shin Daladim, we went through Shechina, which was a bit hard. Seichel. Okay, Seichel is intellect, human intellect, which is really the ability to know. Seichel comprises Chochmah and Bina. And then there's also Das. We can have a really long discussion and argument if Das is Seichel or Midas. Yeah, the answer is yes. It's really Seichel though. It's really Seichel, but Koilel, but within Das, you have the Midas, meaning emotions. So we'll explain this, but it's not it goes on forever, but the basic idea is, and it's familiar to all of us as well. Okay, Chokhmah is the flash, so to speak, of inspiration. Yeah, although we're going to see in a minute that it's not really actually that at all. But let for the meantime, let's say that it is. It's that flash of inspiration when you drive past that massive plot of land in Palm Springs and you think Disney. What they call it, Disney Village or something. What's it called? Disney Residences or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So like you see this massive, you know, 4 mile square plot of land, and you just think shops and apartments and cinemas and gardens and theme parks and the whole thing, yeah. And it's have they started building there yet, by the way? Yeah, they started building, yeah. So you see that's the Chokhmah, yeah.
Building, by the way, you can already buy a place in there. They already have the huge lake. God willing, next time you'll come, you'll see it. It's you can buy a home right there. Starting homes in there are $1.5 million.
That's for the cheap ones. And I'm sure they'll go up to maybe even nine figures or something, no? Uh, it's gonna be very fancy. Anyway, um put me down for two of the mid-range. I won't go for cheap.
Done.
Okay.
Done.
So that initial, you see the whole thing, yeah. That guy. Imagine the chutzpah of the guy. I love that idea when just the chutzpah of these people who, in a good way, these massive, massive projects. Like hundreds of millions of dollars, sometimes even billions of. I mean, the for sure the this Disney World will be a billion. At least 10 figures. Yeah. So the thought of like just the chutzpah of like even imagining such a thing, that's amazing. That just shows you the godless of man that he can have such an ambition. Yeah. So that when you see the whole thing, yeah, just in your head without any details, just a very kind of low res picture, but everything's there. Yeah, that's Chokhmah. Then Bina is when you take that low res image, so to speak, or it's not even it's just the potential koach ma. It's the energy. Bina thou gives it length and depth and breadth, and it starts to fill in the details. So that's in the moshel that'll be the guy on the phone talking to the his people, explaining what he's just seen and saying let's get moving. So you got some guy gets in touch with the government, another guy starts dealing with the architects, another guy with the designers, another guy with the builders, another guy with the planners, and nothing's happened. There's not nothing. The ground is as fallow as it was before. There's nothing doing in the physical world, but on an intellectual world, everything's already in place. Yeah, that's Chokhmah and Bina. Das, so we call Chokhmah. Do you remember the three Ds? Itty, remember the three Ds that we use to describe Chokhmah, Bina, Das? We haven't said this for a long time.
Hmm.
Chokhmah discovers the idea.
Discover, yeah.
Bina develops the idea. And Das identifies with the idea. It's a bit of a stretch, but still D. Yeah. So discover, develop, identify. So Das is when there's enough friction between the Chokhmah and the Bina. See, the Chokhmah and Bina, without Chokhmah, Bina's got nothing to work with. Nothing would happen. Without Bina, Chokhmah's just just an idea. You know, like at the Shabbos table, someone says, "Oh, what about this?" Yeah, and it's forgotten about in 1 minute. Yeah, that's what Chochmah is without Bina. Chochmah is just an idea that just vanishes off into the sky. So Chochmah without Bina is nothing. Bina without Chochmah doesn't even begin. So those two, that's called Abba and Imma, and they are always in a zivug. See the if you want to understand the Partsufim, it's a little bit off topic, but it's quite an amazing idea. Is that Atik and Arich, which are the two Partsufim, let's say of Kesa, yeah. The highest is Atik Yomin, and then you've got Arich Ampin, um, and they are one. They're not two, they're one. Chochmah and Bina, which is called Abba and Imma, they're already a zug. They're a pair. Yeah. And then um and then Zah and Nook are also a pair, but just listen to this, it's a very amazing idea. Is at the highest level, Atik, although it's one, it has a back and a front. So in that sense, it has a there's a that you there's not a duality there. It isn't. It's just one, but it has a front and a back. Okay? There's the beginnings of some kind of pair, but it's not a pair, it's one. Aruch is also one, but it's a little bit more developed, and now Aruch is called side to side. It's got two sides. Not a back and a front, it's got two sides. Yeah, and L'chorah back and front also, but we don't talk about it so much. Yeah, then Abba and Imma is now a zug. That's a pair. Yeah, that's an actual pair. Excuse me. Um, but also, what's the difference between Abba and Imma and Zoin, Ze'ampin and Nook? Is that Abba and Imma are always mizdaveg. They're always in a face-to-face zivug. Always. Actually, it's not always a face-to-face zivug. They're always in a zivug. They're always mizdavek. They're always together in a zivug. Whereas Zoin is not always in a zivug. They're not always mizdavek. So Zoin can be unzivugged, yeah, and then they turn to each other and they become a zivug, a pair, they have relations, yeah. So it starts at the very top where there's a hint to duality, and then at the very bottom where there's mamash two parts that are together, not together, are together, not together. Abba and Ima, yeah, Chochmah and Bina are a pair that are always together. You can't say that Arich is a pair. You can't. Arich is one. Yeah, Lazy, you hear what I'm saying? Ellie, you got that? Okay. Um, it's a very important idea. So Abba and Ima are a pair that are always together. And that's why without Chokhmah, yeah, Bina, there is no Bina. Without Bina, Chokhmah's worth nothing. So they're always together. That's how the mind works. But what really is Chokhmah? Yeah, because Chokhmah is not actually the flash of light. Chokhmah is an opening to what is above it. Chokhmah is the space through which that flash of light comes through. Chokhmah is the interface between the makifim of the soul and the pnimium of the soul. The 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 level of the soul that is beyond the level of the soul that is um, beyond the conscious level, meaning the Ratzon, which means you can't, like your will to live, yeah? You have no shlita. How do you say that? You have no shlita over that. What do you say? You have no how do you say shlita? You have no control over your will to live. You can't like give up your will to live. That's a makifim. That's a makif. That's bigger than you. That's on the system, not in the system. Yeah, you only experience stuff in the system. And then you have what's in the system, that's called pneumium. Yeah, those are the things that you do have control over, like your thinking processes. Yeah, like your behavior, like your emotions. Those are in your control, believe it or not. So Chokhmah is the interface between what's beyond the soul, which is called Ratzon, and what's in the soul, which is called Seichel and down. So that's why Chokhmah is, the Nakudas, the vowels go with the different spheres. So Kesser goes with comet. Bina is Tsere. Malchus doesn't get a Nikud. Um, I think Tiferes is Segel. I'm not quite sure. I'm not sure, to be honest. But Chokhmah is Pasach. Chokhmah is Pasach. It is open. And in all the davening and everything, we always connect Chokhmah. In Eishes Chayil, we talk about Chokhmah and being open. And in Kriya Shema, we say Birchas Kriya Shema, B'Chokhmah Poisech Sharim. Yeah, we open the Sharim with Chokhmah. Chokhmah is the inyan of openness, and
I
that.
like it. It's the sorry, it's the first thing you talk about with just in general about your journey is after you're proactive is to be humble is to be open. That's the first thing you need. It just to me it just makes sense that you need to be open in order to like to eventually discover, develop, identify.
So in regards to the blessed life, I'm not quite sure how it would fit in with blessed life, but that I was just about to say that Chokhmah is called humility.
Oh,
Chokhmah
really?
and
Okay.
Anivas. Chokhmah and Anivas. Anivas comes from Chokhmah. Why? Because because well, what is Anivas?
What is humility? Well, definition you have given previously is to be open to truth, growth, and change. I've also heard it means just go into the oneness of God, just to be
Okay, but I mean, I think they're both the same. How can you go into, why does Chokhmah, why does Anivas allow you go into the oneness of God?
because you take yourself out of it.
Yeah, Biduk. There's no you in Chokhmah. See, Chokhmah looks at something. Chokhmah is seeing. Seeing is just, you just look. I mean, we put our shtick on things, but there is the ability to just look, just to see. Like a baby. I mean, we've got a 1.5-year-old now, yeah, and I'm so grateful for having a child. Like as I'm a little bit older, to
Yes.
to just study that child, and you see, he looks at stuff, and he looks, and you see, there's absolutely no thought going on. He doesn't have thought. He doesn't have language. He's just looking, and he's seeing what I'm seeing, but I'm putting my shtick on it. But that's not seeing. Seeing is without shtick. Seeing is
Hmm.
without me. You see the same things. When you hear something now, when I say to you, like a man without a man, what is it? A woman without her man is nothing. Yeah, you might hear a woman without her man is nothing, or a woman without her man is nothing. Yeah, I'm saying you can now interpret you hearing your is available now to interpretation, whereas seeing is not available to interpretation. When someone says something, you can interpret it in many ways. It depends on the tone, etc. When you see something, you see something. You might not have seen other things going on also, that might be a problem. But what you see is what you see. Okay? There's no interpretation there. That's Anivus. Anivus means there's no me. There is no me. That sounds like very, I mean, in our years together now, Yitzi, you've probably, how many times have you heard me say the word buttle or bittle? I hardly ever use that word, yeah, because it's so caught up with so many different people use it in different contexts, whatever. But this is really the very essence of bittle. What we mean by bittle is is no sense of personal self, which does not mean that you're shmata. It means
Yeah,
that
yeah.
you're infinitely powerful.
I've heard that you can't even apply to be bittul. You can't even
Buttle.
apply unless you bittul. You can't even apply for it unless you know how fantastically amazing you are.
Of course.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
the
That's a really nice way of saying it. Yeah.
yeah.
You have to have the self to give up.
If you don't mind, just a quick story on, but just very quick. I heard this
Yeah.
from David Sachs. He said that at the Kutzker, they people, big Talmud Chacham went over to the Kutzker yeshiva to see what's going on there because they couldn't, know about the. So he walks in and he was already upset he didn't get the cover. Nobody was walking, nobody was standing up for him. And he said the two people the whole yeshiva stood up for the Rebbe, the Kutzker Rebbe, and some other guy who had a leaf as a yarmulke and two bags, a bag on one foot and a bag as shoes. He had bags on his as shoes and a leaf on his head. And so he said to everybody there, this guy who was visiting and watching, he said, I understand that you're standing for the Rebbe, but why are you standing for this guy? He's like a nothing. And they turned to him and said, yeah, he's a nothing, but he's not arrogant about it.
Very
I like it.
nice. No, no, it's nice. So that's why Chochmah, and that's why why Moshe Rabbeinu, who was an Ish Arav Ma'od, was the original Talmud Chochem. He was
Mm.
a Talmud of the Chochem. Of the Chochmah, of that. That's another way of understanding what a Talmud Chochem actually is. He's a person who's kashor to the Pesach between him and reality, him and Hashem. He's a Talmud Chochem. He's receptive to Chochmah.
To the opening.
Exactly. So that's just another. There's other ways of understanding that, but that's just one way. Um, Now so Chochmah is really, in a sense, if you want to say it like this, it's the openness to discover something new.
That is humility.
And that's humility exactly. So that's where like that guy who's driving past Hovde, who's driving past that place in Palm Springs, and all of a sudden he's like, bang, lightning bolt. He's like, wow, this is gonna be huge, yeah. And he sees the whole thing, yeah. Where did that come from? That came through Chochmah, maybe from the other side, from the other side. But that still came through an openness, through a humility. It's crazy. It comes to a certain humility. It might be a humility to something a little more sinister, but it still comes from a, which could be called maybe Guyver even. It's the same thing. It's like he's not defined. He
Yeah.
just sees this. It's not like there's the story. I've told this story a few times, but it's a beautiful story. I told it on Shabbos. Of the I can't remember the name of the Rebbe. The poor guy comes to the Rebbe. He always goes to the Rebbe for a brocha. Yeah, once a year for Parnassa. He has a susagala, yeah, a horse and wagon. He comes to the Rebbe for a brocha. After 5 years, yeah, he's in a terribly difficult matzav. He comes to the Rebbe again. The Rebbe's, listen, I'm gonna give you a brocha, but I need from you. I'm going to need from you like 100 zuz, whatever it was they were, 100 kopek, whatever it was. Yeah, a big amount of money. And the guy's like, I don't know what to do. Like, and the Rebbe says, well, you could sell your horse. And the guy's like, if I sell my horse, what am I going to do? That's whatever. He goes home, he speaks it out with his wife. They decide they're going to sell the horse. They'll give the Rebbe the money. They give the Rebbe the money. Yeah, the Rebbe gives them the bracha. And the next year, they're ridiculously wealthy. And they come up to the Rebbe, the Chassidim, and they said to him, why'd you do that? And he said, well, the problem was that he thought that the money that he's going to get has to come through the horse and wagon. So he was limiting Hashem to the
Mm.
only means by which Hashem could give him parnassus was through the horse and wagon. How much money can you earn with a horse and wagon? So once I got him to get rid of the horse and wagon, he was now open to
Hmm.
new possibilities, and therefore he got his money. Okay, so that exactly demonstrates the Inyan of Chochmah, where you are open, you're not defined, and you're ready for new. You're ready to go in any. I look at it as another way of understanding it. Again, I've said this much many times. Is in the rainforest. Yeah, you've got the canopy is completely closed. Yeah, and you when you're in a rainforest, wherever you're in the rainforest, there's not one drop of sunlight that hits the floor because the trees all fight for that little spot of light and they get their light, yeah? The minute a big tree, once every few decades, a massive tree dies and falls.
Everybody just comes.
And all of a sudden, there's a massive opening in the canopy, and everything just moves. But you know what there could be? There could be one really arrogant tree who's been growing in this direction for years and years. And the tree next to him was like, "Here, Larry, look over there." He's like, "Leave me alone, man. I'm doing my thing." He's like, "No, Larry, you don't understand. Yeah, Harry just fell over and we got a massive heart." He's like, "Please, just you do your thing. Let me do my thing. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
I've been going in this direction for 200 years now. You think I'm just going to turn around, stum? Yeah, that's arrogance." And that's why it says Hashem says that he hardened Paro's heart. That's the Indian of hardening his heart. That's like Larry the tree who won't turn back to the light because he's too stuck in his ways. That's not a hard enough way of saying it. He's too he's got things too worked out. There's no you know what the ultimate expression of Anivas is? And obviously it was instituted by the most humble of all men, by Moshe, walking into the desert. That is an act of deep humility. To walk into the desert, meaning I don't know what's gonna be. I don't have
Hmm.
insurance.
Interesting.
I don't even I don't even know where I'm going. And I haven't got any food as well. I got like some cake, some matzah for that's going to last me for a few days. I have no idea what's going on. Yeah, that is mamish humility. That was the genesis of our nation. Yeah, walking into the desert. Like you have to know, like it's the hardest thing to do. But I mean, Jordan Peterson talks about it the whole time. The call to adventure. Yeah, Avraham Lech Lecha. That was walking into the desert. We walk into the desert. We don't. We as Americans, yeah, we protect ourselves deeply from walking into the desert. Like that's the last thing that an American wants to do is to walk into the desert. Yeah, the big people who built America, yeah, they are the ones who walked into the desert. And the people leading America generally are the ones who can walk into the desert. But the regular American, meaning the regular secular person, he is scared stiff of the desert. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm understanding. Luckily enough, last night I said I don't know what's going to be. The way I was just driving last night and moving around. I had a wonderful night. I guess my expectations were low. I kind of knew what I wanted to do, but I kind of left it out there in a way. And I thought that was really, really proactive, really good. I thought it was really healthy for me. Um, and I know I just everything you're saying makes a lot of sense. It's like you've mentioned before that Talmud Chachams. It's just funny that you would call somebody Talmud Chacham, but sometimes they could be closed off, you know. And then you also
They're
mentioned
not a
about
Talmud Chacham, then they're a Torah scholar.
yeah,
He's
but
not the
sometimes
definition
it's
of Talmud
synonymous.
Chacham. You know who's a Talmud Chacham I really feel is a Talmud Chacham? A genuine Talmud Chacham. Rabbi Brander.
Yeah, we were mentioning. Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
really
yeah,
feel he's a genuine Talmud Chacham, meaning he's deeply humble. He's a man who's available, who's
yeah.
open to the truth. Talmud Chacham doesn't mean you know the Gemara back to front. It just doesn't mean that.
And you mentioned your 1.5-year old and maybe they may it has something to do with the DMN. I'm not sure, but like going back to like just being a kid again in a way where you're just kind of just like you said, seeing and being open. That's the good way. But how are you going to get to Seichel? How are you going to get to Seichel? How do you?
This is what Seichel is. Seichel is the whole process. That is the klali word for Chochmah, Bina, and Das is Seichel.
Oh, is that okay?
So let's now talk about Das for a minute, and then we'll finish. Is that is
Well,
that
you mostly just spoke about Chachma. You didn't really speak too much about Bina. You're
well?
just getting to Das.
So Chochmah is when that opening manifests, and now energy, chaotic energy from above comes in. That's the real word, is chaotic energy. Chaotic energy from above, you call it Kesa, whatever you want to call it, yeah, comes through, call it Rotson, comes through Chokhmah, and now you've got this like, imagine like an orb, like from Harry Potter kind of thing, like this pulsating ball of chaotic energy. Now, what do you do with that? That's now Bina uses that energy, and in a sense, it takes that actual energy and it stretches it out and gives it length and depth and breadth. So again, back to the Palm Springs analogy is the guy sees the whole Disney residence. Now Bina starts now taking out a calculator and a measuring stick and saying, well, let's work this out. So you've got 18 square acres. Okay, good. Now we could build 13 20-story apartment blocks. Yeah, still have space over for a massive shopping center and cinema complex. And over in that section over here, we can put in a park, yeah, and a lake and a skiing mountain, yeah, or whatever you want, yeah. And now we start, but it's all that chokhmah being stretched out and given form. It's like taking a piece of clay and now like that's an important thing understanding is that's what I'm trying to say to you. It's a nice analogy because without chokhmah, bina does not exist. There is no bina without chokhmah. That's why you can never separate the two. And Chokhmah without Bina is it's zero levatola. It's just worthless. It's just poof gone. So so now you take that Chokhmah, that unformed potential, and you give it length and depth and breadth. But it's still all in the mind. But now what happens? So now you could look at it like this, yeah, conceptually is you could look at it as the relationship of Chokhmah and Bina is a relationship of friction. Yeah, and it's really the mechanics of the biological process of intimacy. Yeah, where it's friction that causes the zera to come out. Yeah, that's exactly what happens with the Chokhmah and Bina. The friction between Chokhmah and Bina, that is what's called das.
Would it make sense then that you would want, I mean, does it matter how much friction there would be? Would it be more friction, more DOS? Like with those
Exactly, that's the
two,
point. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. The more friction there is between Chochmah and Bina, the more das. That's why, in a sense, das is the friction between them. It's the act of intimacy. Adam yada es chava. Adam
what
knew Eve, knew in the biblical sense. I mean, that is the friction between them. So the friction, there's other ways of explaining it as well, but this is just a helpful way of explaining it. That the friction between Chochmah and Bina is das. And what does das mean? Remember, das means you identify with the
in
other.
the five?
So you got Larry.
Discover, develop, identify.
So Walt Disney, yeah, let's just call him Walt. Yeah. Walt drives past that place. He's like, wow, this is mamish crazy, yeah. But it could be the next day he forgets about it because it's just another idea just went. But that doesn't happen. Walt gets on the phone with his people, yeah, and now for the next 18 hours straight, yeah, they're already punching numbers, they're working out how much money they're going to make, they're working out what kind of things are going to be involved. He spends 18 hours like mummish all over it, yeah. Now he falls asleep. He just crashes out. He didn't eat. He falls asleep in his house in Beverly Hills, whatever. Yeah, he came back to Beverly Hills. Falls asleep, and he gets up the next morning, and his wife's all like, whatever. She's upset because he was away the whole day yesterday, and so he decides to take her out to breakfast to kind of make up. Yeah, he takes her to breakfast, and he sits there in the cubicle, and the people in the cubicle next to them, he hears someone say Palm Springs, and he's like, He turns around like it's like someone called his name because the friction between the Chokhmah and the Bina was so intense that he has identified with that idea, with that project, with that concept. And now where he ends and that concept begins has become blurry. And I tell you, 3 years down the line, yeah, once his whole world has been this, this $2 billion deal that he's been thinking about, yeah. When he even hears the word, yeah, when he hears Palm Springs, he's he's completely like that it's him completely. That is a that is an not an outgrowth. That is an outcome of the friction between the Chochmah and Bina.
That's the more friction, the more dust.
That's called
Would there
dust.
be the question is, would there be like I mean, just formulate the question, a tznius aspect of, let's say you have a proper chachma and then you have bina, right? Now, before you, if like the tznius question would be like, sometimes people have an idea and they start to stretch it and to get the length and breadth, but they'll start getting it out there a little too early, meaning they'll start talking about it with people a little too early or something. Maybe it needs to be quiet in your head. Maybe it needs to be worked on first for a while before going out there so that the DOS would be more, you know, way more impactful.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah.
But do you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to like,
No, I know exactly what you're saying. I don't know what you would. I mean, that's a little bit of a side point, but it's a very beautiful point. There needs to be a
like,
level of sneers between the Chochmah and Bina process. There does, because if you start talking to too many people about things, things break down. There needs to be that's a nice. It's another element of the
well, I
another.
was thinking of Walt. Like Walt passes by the place and he has the chachma, and then all of a sudden he wants to bina, but he does it. He's telling everybody. He's all over the place, and like nothing's getting off the ground because it wasn't. He didn't have those 18 hours to himself first, or a
Yeah,
day or two.
yeah, I hear that, but don't remember that Bina could also be be stupid. Meaning Bina is giving length and depth and breadth, but if you're going in funny directions, yeah, it's also extrapolation, it's connection, it's Mavin Dava Matosh Dava, that's called extrapolate, extrapolation. But you could be doing things that aren't necessary. Like once you've had the idea of the Chochmah, yeah, once you've seen the Palm Springs plot of land, and you start now, immediately you just get sucked into the lake. Yeah, the idea of the lake. Yeah, and now you just get pulled into this very tiny facet of the idea and you think you're involved because it's part of the project, but there needs to be intelligence to Bina. There needs to be a Seder to the Bina. You understand? You need to start thinking there needs to be a strong Seder to the Bina. That's the point. But
There's one more question. Is it also possible to say that people who are identifying with the wrong things in this world, that it would be easy to break them off of it because they didn't have proper chachma and bina to that das?
if people identify with the wrong
Let's say
thing,
somebody
then
identifying with something bad that they're doing. I don't know. I can't think of a specific example right now, but something they should not be doing.
well, think about how people get so crazy over their hatred for Jews. Some people go
Okay.
cuckoo over their hatred for Jews.
Well, I was thinking of Jewish people, not non-Jewish people.
Okay, either way, but I'm just saying that's based on Chochmah and Bina. Again, all identification is based on Chochmah and Bina.
Well, I was thinking of somebody, a yid who is doing something they shouldn't be doing.
Okay.
That if you would properly give him the proper chachma and bina, they would quickly get off of that das because it's not that chachma and bina is not
Yeah,
a
but
strong.
the problem is that once an idea has fallen into your dust and you've identified with the idea, then it's very, very difficult to let go of it. Well, usually what happens is when an idea falls into your dust, now the Chochmah and Bina become they become in service of that idea, of that
Mhm.
identification. So
Got it.
it's a little bit. It doesn't really work like that because it's now the das is emotional, which means it's subjective, which means I'm involved in it, and now I will like we've spoken about with the with the idea of the spoilt children. The children, the emotions are born from the parents, but
Uh-huh.
now they take the parents hostage.
Go out
Yeah,
the
and
onward.
now so they hijack the Chochmah and Bina.
So where does the midos fall in for the seichel? Where
So
do midos fall in?
now, once the idea has been the friction of the Chachma and Bina has taken place at such a degree, that the heat has been generated, and now you've got now the idea's fallen into the das, yeah, that means you've taken the idea personally. Like Walt now turns around when you say Palm Springs, and now some guy turns around to you and says, the Palm Spring thing's never going to work. Yeah, how dare you? What do you know? What are you talking about? What do you mean? It's an amazing. You're all identified with the idea. Yeah. Whereas when you just before you had that 18-hour binge session with your team about Palm Springs, someone says to you, "I don't think the Palm Spring thing's going to work." Yeah, you might be like, "I hear definitely a big bite." Yeah. But once you've really put time into it and you identified with it, you might come out to the understanding that it's going to be a terrible loss of money and it could be something you really want to avoid. But either way, once you have identified with the idea, now you have emotions towards it. Emotions towards it are basically you love it or you hate it. Okay, I know we talk about Ava and Yira, which is correct, more correct than what I'm saying, but it's more helpful to understand the two emotions as love and hate. Because when we talk about love and fear of God, when we talk about the emotions towards God, obviously we don't talk about hate, but really we talk about fear. But when we talk about love and hate, that is really what emotion is. Emotion is I'm drawn towards it or I'm repelled away from it. So if it's in a good way, that's called fear or awe. I'm giving you your space, yeah, or I feel small from you, so I step back. But that's it's easier to understand it by calling it hate. So those are the two emotions, love and hate. Yeah, although we call them love and fear. But all that means is basically an attraction towards or repulsion away. Before you've put energy into the Palm Springs project, yeah. Well, how do you feel about that? Could work. Could be good. Could be a good idea. Yeah, yeah. As opposed to this is mamish unbelievable, or I would not touch that with a 10-foot barge pole. That's where das, why we said at the beginning, is das of the intellect or of the midas? And the answer is yes. But it's really of the intellect. It really is. But the midas are nichlal, are comprised within das. But das is the beginning of the midas.
So that means Walt, who goes through Chachman and Bina, now he has the das. Now he has the das of this project. I think it's called Cotino, by the way, Cotino. I looked it up, Cotino.
Cotino.
Yes, that's what they call the project,
Okay,
Cotino.
that's good to know. Yeah,
You
that's
can
helpful.
you can get a tour 3 times a day, and God willing, we'll take a tour. But once Walt goes through this and has das, now what? Now he either loves the project or hates the project.
Well. I mean, we're going to assume that he loves the project. Yeah.
What does that mean? What is how
No,
does I don't understand. How does somebody
it
merge
means
and then hate with it?
so now once the idea has been developed enough in the mind, yeah, it's not such a good analogy with the with Cotino, whatever it's called,
Okay.
um, but um, but with an idea, like with like a good example is the Israel Gaza conflict, yeah. Now people have very deep emotions towards that. Do you love Israel or hate Israel? Do you love Palestine or hate Palestine? Whatever you want to call them, Gaza, whatever you want to call the whole thing, however you want to define it. That comes from those deep emotions are born from the friction of the Chochmah and Bina that causes the Das that it's now the identification with the idea. So you go to some guy, go to some guy who hardly has heard of the idea, and say to him, "So how much do you hate Israel?" He's like, "I don't hate Israel." Well, how much do you pay? How much do you hate the Palestinians? I don't really know anything about the thing. I don't care either way. Yeah. Whereas opposed to a person who's been involved in it, they are going to have emotions towards it. In regards plugging it into the Cotino project, yeah, it will now that emotion will now energize. Well, that's what emotion is. That dust will now energize the project. Emotions are the energy that has been ordered by the seichel. That's what the seichel does. And this was the point I wanted to end on. I need to go in a moment. That the seichel orders the chaotic energy of Ratzon. Ratzon is chaotic energy, which means without order. Seichel is the process of ordering that energy. We just spoke it out. That's called Chochmah, Bina, and Das. And now that energy is usable. That energy, the energy of Ratzon is just the will to live. But the energy of the emotion is the desire to build Cotino. You with me? That desire to live, which is really the energy, the panemius of the energy that he's using to build Cotino. Because why does he want to build Cotino? He wants to make his mark, he wants to earn money, he wants to build something, he wants to be creative. All of that is really a desire to live, just enclosed in something more tangible and more actionable. You with me? So that's what emotion is. Emotion is ordered Ratzon. And what orders it? Seichel. Okay. With that said, I'm gonna go and
Okay, I have two questions. I'll text you because I want to clarify two things.
yeah, okay, but say that I'm gonna
No,
run
it's
in the
not good.
meantime. And we're nearly done. We got just Simcha to get through next week, and then we've got Torah. Torah, Tchias and Mason, Tanya, and Tshuva. So we've actually got quite a little bit left. Those are all big.
And then if we can please either get a small book on this or if we can get flashcards, that'd
I
be
mean, we
awesome.
already have. I mean, I have the book. But this was before AI, so it's still a 60 odd page book with all
How
the
much? How many?
60 pages
Okay, and flashcards.
and flashcards. B'ezrat Hashem. Okay, so like I
Books
said,
nobody reads, but flashcards.
absolutely. And then we need storybooks and etc.
Okay, it's all
We're moving
happening.
good. We're doing good with that, by the way.
Still